can't. I have to. That won't work. That's just the way things are around here. I'm Dr. Joseph Reed, and the words we use not only communicate about a topic, they also communicate powerful messages about us personally as well. Sometimes the messages they communicate are not the ones that we intend. Positive language communicates a message of enthusiasm, of confidence, of credibility. Negative language can communicate a much different story. Disengagement, frustration, powerlessness. How would you prefer to be seen? The language you use matters to you personally as well as professionally. And if you have contact with customers, it can have an impact on how your organization is seen by its clients. You probably spend a great deal of your time and energy trying to influence other people. How you're seen by them, your personal brand, really matters for your influence and your credibility. And the words you use can have a tremendous impact. Think about how the words you use are perceived by others. People like to do things for and with people they like. Long-term influence is driven in part by our likability. There are a number of traits that can contribute, and positivity is pretty high up on the list. We like people, we naturally like people who have a positive outlook. If you've ever spent time with a colleague or an acquaintance with the personality of Eeyore, that pessimistic, gloomy, depressed donkey from Winnie the Pooh, you've experienced the contrast firsthand. Their language and the focus of their conversation can bring us down. After a while, we start to avoid them. On the other hand, people who use positive language make us feel good. The words they use and what they talk about elevate our mood. We feel better for having spent time with them. We like them. Not only can the words we use create negative perceptions in others, they can also create or reinforce negative attitudes, negative paradigms within our own internal. In addition to revealing negative self-beliefs, our language can act as a type of self-programming mechanism. Our subconscious hears and responds to our language. Quote, "Our language-based thoughts shape our consciousness, and consciousness shapes the reality that we perceive. So choose your words wisely because they become as real as the ground on which you stand," unquote. And that quote is from Andrew Newberg and Mark Robert Waldman's great book, Words Can Change Your Brain. Negative language reinforces negative perceptions and mindsets. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling frustrated, negative language can actually make those perceptions and feelings even worse. Positive language, on the other hand, can make us feel better. It can create a positive, self-fulfilling cycle that changes our perspective for the better. The words we use to describe something, whether they be self-talk in our own mind or spoken aloud to a room full of people, affect how we view the situation. Positive language is the language of optimism and confidence. When we use it, it can create attitudes and behaviors that lead to a positive, self-fulfilling prophecy. Negative language focuses on blame and reactivity. It can paint an unflattering picture of who we are and what we're about. So what might positive language actually look like? It's actually pretty simple. No has a negative connotation. Yes, positive. Sure versus absolutely. I can't. I will. I have to versus I choose to. I must. I want. All right. Yes. Yes, but versus yes, and. That's just the way it is. Let's explore our options. The words themselves are pretty easy. They're pretty simple. Developing the discipline to use them is the key. Let me offer 4 suggestions. Number 1, monitor your self-talk. We all talk to ourselves pretty much all the time. We all have a rich internal dialogue that takes place every day. Our consciousness is engaged in a running commentary of what we experience and what we imagine. Listen to what you're saying to yourself. Is it positive or is it negative? It all starts on the inside. If you hear your self-talk saying things like, this is terrible, this is unfair, I can't do this, there's nothing I can do, or some other negative comment, you actually can do something about it. Make some positive changes. Replay that self-talk consciously in a more optimistic, more positive language. Number 2, to help you do that, create some psychological space. Events can sometimes come out of the blue and lead to a knee-jerk negative response. When you encounter a negative situation, try to create space between the event and your response. It's pretty easy. Pause. Take some deep breaths. Count to 6. Ask some questions. Whatever works for you. That space will give you an opportunity to formulate a more positive response. And number 3, consciously choose the positive response. Make a decision in the moment to use language that looks at the issue through a positive frame, or at least a neutral frame. Rather than focusing on what can't be done, offer alternatives. Instead of pointing fingers and blaming, accept ownership for improving things. Rather than limit your influence, consciously communicate optimism and confidence by using affirming language. My last suggestion is that you become a positive contagion. Your attitude and your energy can affect other people. When people like or feel comfortable with you, they'll often mirror you subconsciously. Work to be the person in the room who raises the energy of everybody else and improves the mood of everybody else in the room. Those 4 ideas can help you improve your productivity and increase your sphere of influence.